All right, everyone, welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin. He's Gordon, coming to you from separate locations in frozen Austin, Texas on Friday. Gordon, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, it's cold in Texas. It's weird. You know, I'm not from Texas. I'm originally from the Northeast, Pennsylvania area. Shout out Lehigh Valley. And even if you're born in cold weather climate and you live there for like 20 plus years, it doesn't make it easier to handle it when you get cold weather in Texas. It's still cold. Cold is cold. There's no discrimination. If you're cold, you're cold. There's no like, different levels of cold. No, you're just cold. Anyway,
Yeah.
What a podcast to start off talking about the Austin, Texas
The weather.
But
the local weather. It looks like it's cold a lot of places, though. I'm scrolling through Instagram, seeing where different athletes are training, and it looks like a lot of them are in some cold weather. So we are alike in that sense. It's the ice that gets you. I can deal with just cold temperatures and even snow falling on the ground, but when the ice comes out, stuff gets canceled. It's hard to run, hard to drive. That's like where I think, man, San Diego seems really nice all the time.
Yeah. I think that's why people like going to Foot Locker.
Yeah. No ice on the ground in Foot Locker. Yeah. Okay, so we got some meets to preview. New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, which is taking place in New York this year, not in Boston, but it has a incredibly deep field. And then we have the Iowa State Classic on the collegiate side of things. Then we'll close out by reading some emails and responding to some YouTube comments. But first, Gordon, I just want to get your read on this New Balance Indoor Grand Prix meet. When you look at the whole start list, look at all the big names who are in it, which race do you think is the most significant? Which race are you looking forward to the most, not just because it's got big names in it, but because it might actually tell us something moving forward?
I would say the men's 60. I think seeing Bromell versus Lyles again. It's definitely Lyles coming to Bromell's wheelhouse. Bromell being a world indoor champion in 2016. Bromell did show up, did run early well in the American Track League, but then kind of lost to what's his name? Oh,
Ronnie Baker.
TCU. Ronnie Baker. And Lyles, we know Lyles is the best in the world in the 200. And we know that Lyles, while he's really good in the 100 and can win in the 100, he does have a little bit of a kryptonite in the shorter distances. So you have to imagine the 60s even shorter for Lyles. Lyles doesn't run a lot of 60s. He never had to do it in college because he didn't go to college. That's where I think these athletes learn to get good in the 60 is in college. And I think that'll be interesting because if Bromell goes out there and beats Lyles, that would be like, oh, okay. Bromell might be the next big sprint star. Not the next big, but like might be the king of the sprint mountain, while Christian Coleman is sitting at home,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good pick. I can never put too much into a 60 because it's just a drastically different race than the 100. We've seen time and time again people look like gold medal winners indoor season, and then they go outdoors and they finish 8th or they make the semis at the Olympics or the World Championships. But there's just the fact that they're lining up with one another. And Lyles is also running the 200 in this event, so he's going to run two races here. But I'm
probably break the
really
world record maybe in the 200.
Yeah. Bonus points at home if you can name what the world record is in the indoor 200. You'll be a real track fan if you know that fact. But
I know it's not an American; it's some random guy.
I think it's significant from the perspective of isn't it Frankie Fredericks?
I don't know.
I don't know what his time is, but I think it's Frankie. I'll look. Indoor 200.
I think it's like 1995 or something like that.
1992. Frankie Fredericks, not a random guy though. Oh, in Leven. Leven like is this low key soup. You look at the all time list. There's a lot of like fast
BU.
all time performance. Yeah, it is. We were joking about it. Oh, it's the BU of France. I think it might actually be. Yeah, Frankie Fredericks 992. That'll be interesting. I don't know. I have no idea what shape he's in. It's an indoor 200. The banks matter a lot. I'm not sure how that Staten Island track is for fast sprint times. But with the 60, I think it's important from a Bromell perspective too, because as you mentioned, he goes from the 6'4s to the 6'5s, goes from dominating, going against Ronnie Baker, gets a loss. How does he respond? Is he a 6'4 guy or is he a 6'5 guy? We know Bromell is one of the guys who can do it at 60 and at 100. He's not just an indoor specialist. So if he can get another time sub 6'5 here, get a win over Lyles, I think things look really good for him heading into the outdoor season.
What's the event that is most interesting for you?
For me, it's weird to say this because the field isn't that deep, but it's the 800, the men's 800, just because I want to see Brazier's response to what Hoppel did a couple weeks ago when Hoppel ran the second fastest indoor 800 in American history behind Brazier. I want to see if he's in that same type of shape. Now, Hoppel's in this meet. He's in the 1,000. It's a bummer. It'd be awesome if they're running in the same event. But if you're asking,
they can do that. They can race each other if they want to.
They're allowed to. Yeah, no, I wish they did. I wish they did.
There's no rule saying that the two best 800-meter runners in the country can never race each other. Like, that's not a rule. There's also no rule that Sidney McLaughlin doesn't have to race Shawnee Miller-Weibo or Waylon Jonathas, that she gets to run a 500 against a bunch of people who she's 4 seconds faster than. There's no rules against.
Well, she's running the 60. She's running the 60 hurdles too, so she's doubling up. She's running the
but
if you're a 400-meter hurdler and you do a 500 and a 60 hurdles, you get a little bit of both. You get a little bit of everything going into. Let me talk about this for 800 though. Eric Sawinski's in there as well, but this should all be about Brazier, and I just want to see where he's at. Where does he measure up? We've talked about Hoppel closing the gap, not just because of what Hoppel did indoors, but go back to Monaco last year. He pressed Brazier in that final 100. So I want to see do we have evidence that Brazier of 2021 is the same Brazier we saw in 2020 and 2019? Is he a little better? Is he a little bit behind that pace? We just don't know because we haven't seen it. And even against a field that doesn't include his number one US competitor, we'll still be able to figure that out because Brazier has shown the ability to run fast even when there's not people keeping him company.
Who do you think is dodging who? Do you think Brazier's dodging Hoppel, Hoppel's dodging Brazier, or they're both dodging each other?
So I had heard he was targeting the 1,000 record for a while in this meet. That was written in some article like a month or so ago. I think he had the things. I think he had the races plotted out. I don't know, but it does always work out that way, right? It does work out.
Galen Rupp and Bernard Lagat did. They would always not race each other. I mean, there was a time when they were both running the same event, but just in two different meets on the same weekend. Like, there's something about like indoor meets where like they're like no one wants to race each other because they all want to like keep their resume with like being undefeated in their resume before outdoor starts. It's like, who cares if you lose in indoors? It doesn't matter. Yeah. Just race. And we talk like it just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It's just weird.
You don't like
it's
my
like
pick.
It's like
you don't like my pick. It's okay.
Well, no, I'm just what's the point of running an 800? Like, it's just like people want to watch the best race each other, not like everyone run their own little time trial. I don't know. Yeah. Yes, Sawinski's a good opponent, but he's not anything close to Brazier. Like, you're going to watch at 800, and it's not going to be about who's going to win this race. It's just going to be about, how fast will Brazier go?
Yeah.
But if you put Hoppel in it, it would have been like, who's going to win? You know?
Let me ask you this.
They're taking that out.
Do you think if there was a U.S. champs this year, do you think they would have raced each other?
Yeah.
I do too. So I'm going to give them a little more time to figure it out. I'm going to give them a few more opportunities to race it because I don't feel like they would have gone to that extreme because we've seen that too, right? We've seen people avoid each other even at U.S. championships. So I don't think it's gone to that level yet. But I mean, what was Brazier scheduled to run at the American Track League? He was scheduled to run a 600, correct? So he was going to run a 600 and an 800. and Brazier was running, and Hoppel was running an 800 and 1,000. Yeah. I guess you'd rather have just one 800 where they race together this year. I'm with you. There's not.
Yeah.
Didn't you? It was you who did that analysis of, was it Brazier and Murphy, and how they've never raced, basically?
Yeah.
Because
and
that's
why. Super late. Like,
yeah. And that's why when people are like, oh, and I fall into this of like, yeah, they'll meet each other eventually. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. That's why if they're both in the same meet and they're both healthy, you want it to happen then, because there's no guarantee that later on they're going to be that good, or they're going to be at the same place. They're both going to be healthy. So when they are, you have to take advantage of it. That's why it was a few years ago, Bolt and Johan Blake, and everyone was like, oh, it's good that they're not racing each other. It builds up suspense for the Olympics. No, it was terrible, stupid. It's like they're good now. They're 1 and 2. You want to race as much as possible. It's like it's like, let's see Federer and Nadal play each other fewer times in tennis. That'll really drum up the interest. No, play as much as you can. Play all the time.
Yeah,
they're the best in the world. Compete.
When the Lakers and the Clippers play each other, we want them both playing their B squads until the NBA Finals Game 7, because we don't. Yeah. We want there to be anticipation. No, it's stupid. Like, we're screwing. We're diluting our regular season by turning regular seasons into the type of stuff. I mean, whatever. I'm happy they're doing it, and I'm being a Debbie Downer, and I should take everything I said back. But I do think, though, seeing Bromell and Lyles together, that's something that normally wouldn't happen. And seeing Sydney challenge herself in the 60 hurdles at least is something, because I swear the platter of easy race that they give Sydney at this New Balance Indoor Grand Prix every year is just like ridiculous. Like, you cannot call that women's 500 a professional race. Like, it's disrespectful to the fans in a way. To like,
I thought you said you weren't going to be Debbie Downer. Didn't you just say you weren't?
But like, look at the women's 500 field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Read the names.
No, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's just like, what do we like? Why are people gonna be excited to watch Sydney race people that are like the equivalent of her racing like 15-year-olds? It's just like, what are we getting out of this? And I get they're doing it because they want to confirm that their star New Balance athlete gets the win. Can only have to. It's less pressure on her, so she can focus. It's like, Sydney's one of the best in the world. She can handle pressure. Like, she's good enough to beat fast people. You don't need to make it like soup. Like, there's like a point where it's like, all right, you're being a little too obvious. But anyway,
is this going to be for you like Ches and the Bowerman every year? You're just going to bring up the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix
Sydney and the New Balance meet
until she retires.
Yes, why we do. Yeah,
Leah Anderson. I'm looking at the start list here. Leah Anderson, who has a 53-second 400 PB. And then you have Brenna Detra, who went to Indiana, I remember, because I called some Big Ten meets.
What's her PR?
And she has I want to say she was more of an 800 runner.
Okay, great.
Wait, she's run 55 in the quarter and 202 in the indoor 800. 202 indoor 800, pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty 500. Good. We're not running the 700.
Well, that's the problem, right? That's the problem. Who's going to sign up right now to be like, yeah, I want to run a 500?
Yeah. Well, so, you find
even if you wanted to have people in it, like elite people in it, it's in a nonsense distance that nobody cares about, really.
Ooh, I
mean, the other one is. I mean, the 500 is not. Let's just be honest here. There's enough real events to do.
Yeah,
that we don't need to have a 500. Yeah, it's nonsense. Olga Koshachenko, who I unfortunately cannot find a Tila Stapaya page for, so I'm not sure.
Not even a real athlete. It's a fake athlete. It doesn't even exist.
Oh, no. I found her. Hold on. I found her. Here we go. 55 in the 400, and she's run a 202 indoor 800 as well. So they're going heavy on the 800s here.
55 second, and 53 second versus a 49-second runner. It's just like, okay,
It's
what
not
do we
fair.
do?
It's not fair. It's not fair. I
Stupid.
do like that she's running the. I do like that she's running the 60 hurdles though, and Kenny Harrison is in there as well. So she'll get a real race in. Look, if you're gonna run twice in a 2-hour meet, I'll give you the second event. You can do whatever you want. You could run a 7:20. I don't really care. You could run a 3:50 against junior high kids. If you run one real race against an elite field, yeah, I'll give you a pass. I'll give you a pass
I
for
mean,
everything else.
Sydney
That's fair,
McLaughlin
right?
is not, but 60 hurdles is not a real race for Sydney either. She's not a 100-meter hurdler. She's a 400
I know, but
meter
it's a
hurdler.
real.
She should run a
But
400.
you get to see her. I know, but
against 400
of
meter
the event,
runners.
there's no but there's no 400 hurdles in this event
There
because
is
it's
an
indoors
open
and there's no
400.
400 hurdles. There's an open 400, sure, but look, 60-meter hurdles against an elite field. That's kind of cool. I'm kind of interested to see how fast she would be at that because she's good at everything. Like, so you're sort of testing the limits when you're going all the way down to 60. We've never really seen her do a high hurdle.
Yeah, but like we saw like
since
Corey
she became
Carter.
a star.
We saw Corey Carter
I'm
do
just
it. And
interested.
it's like, this is all right.
It's interesting. Okay, you're being a Debbie Downer and you're pulling me down,
I
and I
am.
don't appreciate it. So let's keep it moving
It's
here.
cold out, man.
Here's
It's cold. I got it.
Here's the race I'm the most surprised about. The field I'm the most surprised about. The men's 400 with Michael Norman and Rai Benjamin. Because 400-meter runners, elite 400-meter runners, sometimes it's hard to find them during the indoor season, and for good reason. It's a completely different race. Michael Norman, of course, is the indoor world record holder back from his time in college, and we've seen those USA championship fields. A lot of times it's heavy in collegians or people who are not in the top tier of 400-meter running in the United States. So to see Benjamin and
Fred
Norman
Curley,
there.
he's always the outlier.
Fred Curley, well, right, but he didn't run it. I'm trying to think of USA. USA's last year, he wasn't there.
Okay.
No, he wasn't. I'm trying to think of. I mean, he's run indoor meets this year, correct? So he does run indoors. So it's not like he never shows up. But you can go through the list, men and women, throughout the years. It's like Allison Felix made some appearances, Sonia Richard-Dross made some appearances, but it wasn't that consistency of every year they're there in the same way that it happens in different events.
Just,
but so I'm just surprised. And listen, 44:52, Norman ran that at that meet. Those NCAA championships back in, what was that, 2018? It's fun. It's just fun to have a measuring stick to what he was when he was in college versus now he's been a pro for a couple of years. And yeah, it's a debut, but it's just, it'll just be a interesting comparison. And maybe Benjamin can give him a race, his training partner.
That's going to be a good race. I'm excited for that one. It is.
Now you're trying too hard to be positive. You're like, I just love it. It's great.
Super awesome. Great day. Great person. Rye's great man. Norman, gotta love him. I think he'll, if they try, I think they will run the world record. I think world record is a soft record. It's held by a college kid who happens to be Michael Norman.
It's held by him.
Held by him. But it's held by like a lesser version of himself. It's like Michael Norman is better than he was in 2018. So you have to assume that, like, hey, he's a man now. Like, he should be able to be like, he should be able to shatter that record. I mean, he might take it easy, but I think he runs 44 low, probably.
All right. What else?
Dude, what do you think?
You want to go to?
Do you think he breaks a world record?
No. I'm gonna say no.
Ooh.
I just don't know. I don't know what he's. We haven't seen him. Coming out the gate with a 44 low. I mean, he's certainly capable of doing it. He ran 43 mid outdoors in one of his first races of the year a couple years ago. So I could end up eating my words on that one. But I would take if you set the over under at the world record, I would go over. But anything under 45 indoors is rare. That puts you in a very, very short list. Like, you don't see sub 45 indoor runs that often.
Yeah, I think it's rare because of the circumstances of it. Indoors run in the beginning of the season. Indoor is not prioritized by the top 400-meter runners, so sub 45 is going to become a rare number.
Guess how many times there's been a sub 45 in history?
3.
I just looked it up.
3.
Okay, you kind of ruined it. You're supposed to say 30. It's 11. Only 11 times.
Oh, okay.
Only 11 times. Norman, Clement, Johnson, Karate James, Terrell Richard at NCAA's, Curley, Bloomfield, Taplin, Merritt, Curley again, Michael Johnson again.
Michael Johnson.
So it's just it's incredibly rare. But I think if Norman wanted to go, like if he did 2 meets this year, he'd blow it out of the water. But
Yeah.
in one race, maybe he goes like 44-7, something like that. Okay, the 1500 men and women. Let's talk about that one now. First with the men, no Centro. He pulled out, but there's still Engels, Willis, Johnny Gregoric, Drew Hunter, Jake Whiteman, Oliver Hoare, and Amos Bartlesmeyer, among others. Engels the favorite? I guess you'd have to say Engels is the favorite. I mean, Willis looked pretty good at American Track League. All the attention went to the high school kid who he trains with sometimes, but Willis didn't look bad in that race either.
I mean, Willis lost to a college kid though in that race.
Not just any college kid. They lost to Taki, your favorite for the 800.
Taki. Yeah, it's true.
Taki. I'm just saying he has a race. We at least know. A lot of these other guys we don't know. We have no clue what's going on.
I bet Whiteman wins it.
Okay.
I bet it. I feel like, yeah, I think we don't know where Engels is at, like fitness wise. When's the last time he's run? It's been a while, and I can see him. I can see Engels winning, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then I'll see him losing, and be like, okay, that makes sense as well. He's just not fit yet, and I can see some like international guy come in and be like, boom.
He raced at the American Track League event. He ran 146 in the 800.
And he won? Oh, no, he got like 4th, yeah. Okay, so he is fit. So then Engels will win.
Okay. Yeah, he was behind Sawinski, but ahead of Murphy in that race. But you're right. We haven't seen him this year in his featured event. Looking last year, what's the fast? He ran a 3:35 last year in Monaco. Okay, so you got Engels in that one. Probably pretty smart pick. I'm interested to see like Oliver Hoare, Amos Bartlesmeyer. Like I'm interested to see the youngerish guys, see what they can do. See if anybody can pop up here. Women's 15, Colleen Quigley, Nikki Hiltz, Corey McGee, Heather McLean, and Alexa Ephraimson. Quigley, she's a steepler, but she's really good over 1500 too. So I think it's going to come down to, well, I think it'll be between her, Hiltz, just the 4 that I said there, Quigley, Hiltz, McGee, and McLean, who's won this year as well too.
I think Quigley wins that.
Quigley gets the dub there. 2 mile for the women, Coburn, Purrier, and Jones, and the men, Eric Jenkins, Joe Klecker, Justin Knight, Morgan McDonald, and Jordy Beamish. A lot of ex-NCAA stars, recent NCAA stars in that men's 2 mile.
Yeah, I bet Jenkins wins that. I'm waiting on Jenkins to have that comeback moment, like because he's kind of been forgotten about for the past few years. You know, coming out of Oregon, he was like on top of the game. He finished, was it 4th at the Olympic trials? I think he was 4th at the Olympic trials. Yeah. And then ever since then, it kind of just like faded away. I think it dealt with injuries. But Jenkins is a talent, man. Maybe this is his year to get back into it. And, you know, I'm going with
Jenkins. Guess how old Jenkins is, by the way. Guess how old he is.
I think he might be older than we think he is.
Yeah, he is.
How old
usually everybody's way
like 27?
Everybody's way younger than we think.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rare to look somebody up. He's 29.
29? Damn.
Yeah. It's according to Tios Tapai, he's 29. I think he's a 10,000 meter runner, and we saw that last year in the track meet. He runs 27:22. I'm like really good. So this is, if he's good at this at the 2 mile, if he's able to beat these guys, that's a really good sign. That's just icing on the cake because I think his future is in that 10,000. And you've talked before about how the 10,000 for the U.S. is open.
It
this
is.
Year.
It's wide open.
There's some spots. Yeah, there's some spots.
Walk right in through the front door.
Coburn, Purrier, and Jones. I think Purrier has to be the favorite there. Again, she's someone who, man, just has had some huge results indoors and outdoors. But it's a new year, and you just want to see if she can keep that going. I know our tendency is to think whatever you've done in the past, you're just going to keep doing. But it's hard. It's hard to stay at that level. But I mean, she ran that mile in 4:16 in 2020 indoors, so she's definitely got the tools. And she went to Doha in 2019 and ran those fast 5,000s and got her PR under 14 or under 15 minutes. But again, that women's 5,000 has just changed dramatically. So if she's going to try to make that team again, the 5,000, I think you're going to have to be, I know for sure, you're going to have to be in better shape than 14:58 shape to make that team. And maybe she's going to lean more to the 1,500. Maybe she sees more of an opportunity there. So I'm interested to see what she does. She ran 2:02 in Phoenix last week in the Bowerman meet.
Yeah, I'm going with Perrier as well.
So women's 8, probably not getting a lot of attention because, Ajay Wilson is in it, but it's a good field. It's got Natoya Gould, Sammy Watson, Sierra Brown, Adele Tracy, who just won an American track meet. And it also has Sophia Goriarin, who ran at American Track League. She's a high school sophomore. I don't know if we ended up, I think we discussed her race. I'm not sure. It might have gotten lost in the shuffle, but she ran 2:02:44, and she's 15 years old. Pretty good.
Kids these days are wild.
Yeah.
I didn't run 2:02 in the 800 till I was like 17 years old.
I never ran 2:02 in the 800. Yeah, there's more.
Maybe I did at age 16. I think I did it at 16, but still, it took me a year longer for me to do it than
if this was
incredible athlete.
If this was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we'd be losing our minds at a high school sophomore running 2:02 in the 800. But everything has gotten so fast across the board in the high school scene that it was one of many crazy performances.
That is interesting how that happens. How, like, just the amount of elite high school type performances that happen regularly year in, year out. Whereas, like you said, 10, 15 years ago, there's only like one person in one event every 3 years or something like that, right? It's like, this is a crazy moment. And then look at those times. They're not even running that fast, like, comparatively. But, like, I think just all the people in high school were just so much separated from these top high school kids. But now more and more high school kids, due to the internet and national coverage, they're not trying to win their local district meet anymore, or even their local state meet. They're all trying to be the best in the country. And when you're trying to be the best in the country, it makes everyone faster, and it leads to 15-year-olds running 2:02 in 2021.
That's right. Women's 4, you mentioned it offhand there, but it's cool that Shauna Miller-Weibo is running this race. World record 49:59. That's going to be really hard to get, but it's worth mentioning because it's Shauna Miller-Weibo, Waddle and Jonathan, and Phyllis Francis in there as well. And you got a women's 60 with Tiana Daniels, Leah Hobbs, Micaiah Briscoe, Jenna Prandini, Brianna Williams. 300's got some names in it. Women's 300 with Ellis Irby and Thomas. And then we talked about the men's 200 before with Noah Lyles doing the double.
Hey, if you live in Canada or if you live in Australia, you can watch this meet live on FloTrack.
There you go.
All my Canadian and Australian friends. Do we have any Canadians running this race?
Well, we got an email from someone who listens to the show in Canada, so maybe
there you go. They can watch.
Are there any Canadians in this meet? Justin Knight is in this meet.
Justin Knight, and then Oliver Hoare in the 1500. So,
yep,
Australia.
There you go.
Right, Oliver Hoare's Australian, right? Boom. So men's 1500 and the men's 2 mile. Just for you, Canada and Australia. Here's to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Gordon will talk about the men or the women's 500 too. I mean, nobody in there from those countries, but also Kieran Lum is from Canada. He's in the 2 mile. Morgan McDonald.
Okay. Morgan McDonald.
Yeah, I'm just gonna list. I'm gonna list Australian and Canadian people.
I'm sure Jordy Beamish probably has a friend from Australia because he's from New Zealand. So,
Julie Ann Stahill in I apologize if I messed up her name, in the 2 mile. She's from Canada, So you got another one there. Man, there's just a lot of options
So
here.
many. A lot of options.
So many options. Where does the women's 1500 start? I need to find the women's 1500. And then
Are there any
I'll
notable
end
field events happening?
Are the notable field events? Well, you got the women's pole vault, Sandy Morris in there. You have
Is Ryan Krauser
Men's
throwing
high-
the shot again?
men's high jump. You got Eric Kennard and you got Trey Culver, Shelby McEwen, former NCAA champion, Keenan Lane. Shot put. I don't think there's a shot put. No.
Okay. So no Ryan Krauser. No Ryan Krauser show.
No
All
Ryan
right.
Krauser show at all. There's a college meet this weekend as well, too.
Yes.
Iowa State Classic. You wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, well,
because
later
it's in Iowa,
today.
and that's
later today.
That's your second home.
So second home, Ames. Later today, if you listen to this podcast on the Friday, it'll be weird to listen to this podcast after Saturday because it's like you'll just be listening to the past. But we're going to see Edwin Kurgat race Wesley Kiptoo in the Iowa State 5K. Kurgat, who only has outdoor eligibility for Iowa State. Kiptoo, who's one of the favorites in cross country this year. It'll be interesting to see two things. One, how fast Kiptoo goes. Two, how in shape Edwin Kurgat is. And three, if the combination of both of them on the track leads to something awesome. That's I mean, if they go out on the track and they're like, they both run like 13:30 flat, it's definitely going to like open eyes to this whole conspiracy theory that Iowa State is going to win the outdoor championship. Because you'd be like, whoa, okay, they got their Ches and Jenkins like Oregon had in like 2015 where they can go 1-2 in the 10 and the 5. I mean,
all right.
I'm just saying. But yeah, Iowa State preview. Iowa State, that 5K is going to be good. 3Ks, miles. I mean, the fields are a little bit watered down because of pandemic, right? Everyone's kind of spread out, but it's basically going to be a lot of Iowa State kind of flexing their muscles of their mid-distance events and their distance events. And yeah, I think right now Iowa State, I have ranked, 13th in cross country or something like that? Right around 15th.
Too low.
I think if they can...
Too low.
I know. They need to run some fast 3Ks and 5Ks for me to bump them up in those rankings.
They need to run some fast 3K and 5Ks to bump up their cross-country rankings. That's basically this season in a nutshell, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm again, I'm buying Iowa State down there in the double digits. What's been the response to your picks? Your rankings release? Have you heard from anybody?
Some, it's always the opposite. Coaches hate. Well, it's weird. I feel like there's two types of coaches. There's coaches who say this is disrespectful that you ranked us so low. And then there's coaches who say, dear God, why'd you rank us so high? Like, they don't want to be ranked high. They want the best of both worlds. They want to be able to say you are doubting us. And they also want to be able to say, like, you're making us look too good than we are. It's weird.
Okay.
I do notice there is another college meet. It's not live on Flow, but the Tyson Invitational in Arkansas is actually going to be pretty good. And Oregon's going there. Oregon is running like a mile, and it's called the Invitational Mile, and it's just 5 Oregon athletes, probably one of them being a rabbit. But Charlie Hunter, Cooper Tier, Cole Hawker, and Reed Brown all running a mile. Their PBs are 354, 355, 356, and 358. Most likely they're all going to break 4. I have a feeling they're trying to, because they've already run, like Charlie Hunter and Reed Brown have already run a qualifying time. So they're clearly running this mile to get like all-time marks, I think. And it'll be kind of interesting to see what Hunter, Tier, Hawker, and Brown do.
I did see there was a quote. I don't know where it was posted, but from Robert Johnson, who basically my takeaway from it, he said something effective like we're Oregon, so like cross country is always valued here. So that might be a hint as to what they're thinking in terms of do they do both as opposed to just doing indoors. So
they're just gonna go out. They're gonna run They're going to run a Pac-12 cross. They're going to finish in the top 4, get selected, go all out in indoor, and then just see what happens in cross. Like, yeah, I think Cooper Tier, if he goes all out in indoor, instead of finishing 2nd or 3rd at NCAA cross, he might finish like 8th or 9th, which is like whatever, 5 points. Doesn't really affect it. It's still top 10. So I think their athletes probably all going to lose 5 to 10 places, but in the end, they'll probably still be a top 10 team. They're not trying to win cross. They're just trying to like perform and do respectable at cross.
According to your opinion.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure, though, right? We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, that's like that's an assumption based on what. But I mean, that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. Because then the thing that you're best at comes first, so you can do that, and then you can run cross country as icing on the cake and still perform really well because you're super talented. That makes sense. Okay. What else was I going to bring? Oh, on that same topic though, there was a poll that we put up. I wanted to read this. Let me find this. Travis sent this to me.
We got polls now? We got polls?
Well, on social media, he put up a poll that said, which non-NAU men's team is most likely to win the 2021 NCAA XC champs? BYU got 48%, Oregon 35%, Arkansas and Wisconsin 6%, and Notre Dame 5%. That was with 2,000 votes in. It's a pretty good amount of people voting. Your thoughts?
So what was the order? BYU had what? 40-something percent?
48, then Oregon, then Arkansas and Wisconsin at 6%, and then Notre Dame at 5%. So a big chunk think BYU. A massive chunk think BYU or Oregon. People are sleeping on your Wisconsin projection, basically.
Yeah, they are. Wisconsin, low-key good.
Okay. All right. Some other comments here. This is funny. Talking about Nico Young. Young is so overhyped. When Salomon Barrega was his age, was running 12:43, and Hago Skebro was running 12:47. Young hasn't even broken 13:30. Yes, compared to people who have won medals, he's not quite there yet, but we're comparing him to NCAA athletes.
No, but hold on. He has a point. He has a point. That man has a point. He does, but we're not.
No one's saying Nico Young's going to go win the gold.
No, but like, why are non-American athletes, young non-American athletes in distance events able to be better than like the Paul Chalimos of this world? Like, we have that in our American sprinting has the equivalent of what East African and some European distance running has, right? Where Noah Lyles, right out of high school, at like age 19 and 20, can all of a sudden be the best in the world. Why does American athletes in the distance events not have that same trajectory? Like Nico Young, he's one of the best young talents, but when you put him in an international field, he's nothing. But East Africa can get 17 to 20-year-olds who are the best in the world. What do you think is the main reason East Africa can have incredible teenagers, but America can't?
Well, they're pulling from a huge group here, right? Like it's just it's an issue of depth, and then a bunch of them are gonna pan out just because of the sheer volume. In the same way,
a huge group. We're 300 million people in America. We have the biggest group.
No, but I'm talking about so if you're making the track comparison, right? How many people under the age of like 19 in the United States are like, for the men, are like sub 47 in the 400 or something, right? It's just massive number of people, right? Any country would like love the depth that the US has in those events. And then a couple of them pop through at an early age. I think the same thing is happening in Kenya and Ethiopia. As to why that happens, I mean, you can take it a whole bunch of different directions as to why they're good at an age. I'm just saying we're comparing Nico Young to the NCAA, where being good as a freshman on the men's side is super duper rare. So obviously we talk about Barrega and Ingebrigtsen in the context of international competition in the same way we talk about NBA players competing against the NBA and collegiate players competing against other collegiate athletes. Like you're not, I mean, when Zion was at Duke, you weren't saying, well, yeah, he's good at Duke, but hey, put him in there against Joel Embiid. The guy's nothing. It's like, no, we're talking about the people he's competing with now and what he's right now. That's what's relevant.
No,
And
I
look at the
understand that
longevity.
point. I understand the point of like, it's not bad to say you're really good in the NCAA, but I think the point of the post is to say that what is it about the American training operation from high school to college and all that stuff that is so far behind East Africa?
Yeah. Which I think I mean, the U.S. is not as deep as Kenya and Ethiopia in distance running. It's not a newsflash. Are we just discovering that? Like that's
no, I know it's just
been known
not
for a
just
while.
discovering that, but it just you think
It exists
maybe
at
this
every
is
distance.
America. What's the word? Cockiness to think that we should be best at everything, right? And it's like, hey, we're America. Why aren't we the best? I mean, it's just, I guess it's the same thing. Why doesn't USA Soccer win every World Cup? And where now they can't even make the World Cup. Like we should be the best, or at least compete against the best. You know, we don't have US has no excuses for not being in the conversation for every sport because we have the financial ability to care about it, but we have the infrastructure, we have the population to pull from, but for some reason there are certain sports or certain events within a sport where we aren't the best, or not the best, but like in the top 4, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But there's also the idea too of like, look at Galen Rupp's career. He was good when he was young, but he wasn't his best when he was young. And that's like the longevity is something that I think is emphasized. Obviously, there's been runners from Kenya and Ethiopia who have had long and distinguished careers, but the Americans who do break through seem to do it later, and maybe that's part of the American system or the collegiate system. But
yeah,
I don't know. Read The Sports Gene by David Epstein. Get all the answers there. He's a lot smarter than I am. A lot smarter than both of us. Anyway.
Hey, don't speak for me.
Okay. He's definitely smarter than Gordon. Might be smarter than me. All right. So, what about Stanford? Someone wants to know. I know you touched on it a bit, but I find it impressive that 4 of their top 6 are freshmen, and they won the FSU Winter Classic by a good margin with 2 freshmen getting in 23:30.
Winning an event with not that good of competition does not make it good. I think we are thinking because of lack of cross-country events, we are kind of elevating these smaller events as bigger than they really are. And as a result, when you win the FSU Classic, we are thinking it's pre-nats or whisk or the nutty comb, but it's not. It's not pre-nats. It's not nutty comb. And so we need to kind of have perspective on these smaller meet wins and what they actually mean. And when you actually look at the time gap that Stanford had, while again, it's good, they're freshmen and it's not, oh crap, this is like a top 4 team. It is, hey, this could be top 10. Like Iowa State and Colorado are not the same Iowa State and Colorado of years past. Like Iowa State's not a podium team. Colorado's not a podium team. So because you beat them doesn't all of a sudden we're giving more credit to the name on the jersey than the reality of who's wearing the jersey. They're just not in that same field of NAUs and BYUs and Arkansas and Wisconsins and Oregons. It's just they're not. So I think Stanford's good and they're young, but they're not great yet. They're 1 year away from being a year away.
Here's another comment. It says, dude, a D2 kid from Ashland just ran a faster time than any D1 guy this year. How do you not talk about that?
Okay, hold on. Don't tell me.
Oh, or you don't know who it is?
I was going to try to guess what event, but it's 60 hurdles?
No. Trevor Bassett, 400 at the American Track League
400.
ran 45 point. Yeah. It's impressive. Impressive run. That's the same college as Miles Pringle. So they're doing something. They're showing something good over there.
What are your thoughts on D2, D3 versus D1 dynamic?
Well, I don't think it really matter. Like, this is an individual sport, correct? So obviously the facilities are different and the coaching is different and the size of the school is different, but it's not the same as going for, at a team. Like, you're probably going to have, this is an assumption, but if you are a D2 or D3 runner, you're probably going to have fewer opportunities than a D1 runner to get into, if you're really good, to get into races where you have competition. But you are going to get into races at some point if you have competition. When I was in college, Nick Simmons was at college at Willamette University, D3. And one of the first races I watched at Hayward Field was Nick Simmons going to Oregon and beating everybody in the Oregon Twilight Mile. And I was like, wait a minute, why is a D3 guy beating all the Oregon guys? And then I soon realized that it doesn't really matter, right? Because if you can get on the start line, if you can run the time, track and field is a meritocracy in that way. It's not like football or basketball or baseball or hockey. You run the times, you're going to get known, you can get in the races. Now, budget limitations at smaller schools might keep you from getting to these big time meets, but in general, that's the beauty of track and field. If you can put up the mark, you can do what anybody else does, regardless of what jersey you're wearing.
I would have to say there is though a caveat when people say like, oh, get the D, he's just asking why didn't you guys talk about the D2 kid, right? And I think a big reason why, even when D2 or D3 run top marks, it still gets overlooked because when you look at like TFers, which has like the list of descending order list, like they separate it. And so no one is like organizing their TFers combining all three, right? They're only looking at D1 and like I think that if you are the fifth best person in D1, you're more likely to get known than someone who's better than you in D2 because it's just like it's segregated in a weird way. Like, yes, there's opportunities when they run in the same race, but at the end of the day, the championship that everyone is thinking about is NCAA D1, and therefore that's the perspective of like after every D1 race, we're always computing, all right, who's going to win the championship, right? And you're not really thinking about who is the best collegiate athlete. You're just thinking about who's going to win the D1 championship. And the only time you think about who's the best collegiate athlete would be at like an international competition like a USA's. Well, not international, but like a USA type thing, where then you can now appreciate the D2 kid like a Simmons or D3 kid like Simmons or Drew Windle. You can't, it's just, I don't know.
I think the other part of it though too is we just don't see any different, like someone running 3:58 in a mile, whether or not they're D3 or D1, it's just like, well, doesn't matter because everybody's equal with the watch. So you just have this big giant list of, now we obviously should have caught Bassett's time. I think part of it was because he ran it out of the slow heat in that American Track League race too. So it was, and there's a lot of results to get to every week. So definitely should have mentioned it. But I think it's just because everybody gets thrown into the same pot, and whether or not they're in this division or that division, it doesn't really matter. It's just like which times stand out. And like, remember a couple years ago, we were losing our mind watching what Kenny Bednarik was doing for JUCO stuff. I mean, 400s, 200s, like we were glued watching those times, seeing what he was doing. Cause again, it didn't matter. Like once he ran, once he smashed 20 seconds and ran 44 points, like, all right, this guy's going pro probably. Yeah. It didn't matter that he was from, I mean, imagine that, right? Imagine a guy going pro in a team sport or a woman going pro in a team sport from the JUCO level. How often has that happened? I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but like there's a barrier that exists there in those team sports. It's not present in individual sports because they know agents, shoe companies know the time is the time.
Yeah, and I guess someone like Christian Noble, the Lee kid, who has
Yeah.
run 13:37 and 7:51. I feel like at the same time, 13:37 and 7:51 and 4 flat, while they're all great and some are breaking D2 marks, 7:51 in the D1 world isn't really going to be like, whoa, like, just another, a random Iowa State kid will do 7:51. So I think if he was running 7:41 and 13:29 and 3:54, where you're like, oh, you're the best in the country right now in college, then I think it's easier to get noticed. But I feel like when you run elite times, but you're like top 5 elite, it gets blended in with everyone else. And I think that's the issue. And you don't have I represent a school that has a chance to score points at NCAAs because you're in a different division. So,
right. That's definitely a good point. Like there's so many different perspectives with which you can look at it from. In the same way it was Jakob Ingebrigtsen, he ran this time, and that's an insane time for a 17-year-old. That's an insane time for an 18-year-old. And then it just got to the point where it's like, okay, this is just an insane time, period. But if he didn't improve as much, we would have gotten to the point where it's like, okay, we're just talking about him because he's young, but like his times are just like everybody else's times, all right? Like him doing this at 19, if he was 25, probably wouldn't talk about it, but because he's 19, and then you have to decide, well, how long is that noteworthy? Till he's 20, till he's 21, till he's 22. Now he solved that problem by becoming one of the best in the world, so then you're going to talk about him anyway. But yeah, when do the caveats go away? Be it based on what division you run in, be based on what country you're from, et cetera, or how old you are, right? Like when do those go away, and when are you just thrown into that massive bucket of, hey, we're going to compare you and your time against everybody else's?
I think that's a great analogy. We overcover young athletes because of their age the same way we overcover D1 athletes due to their division. I mean, that's just what it is, right? There's two people. If a 17-year-old and a 25-year-old run the same time, we're going to talk about that's what happened at the Olympics. I mean, Sydney McLaughlin was interviewed first before Dalilah Muhammad, even though Muhammad won and it became the Olympic, it's because Sydney got the I'm young bump, right? And I think that happens in the college world where someone runs 750 in D1, someone runs 750 in D2. The D1 guy is going to get a little bit more bump because it's like, hey, I run for NAU or Oregon or whatever, and I can potentially win a D1 title. So you get the bump, even though they run the same time. And I think that bump goes away once they're all out of college because they're like, all right, now it's just we want to know who's top 3 in the U.S. And when it comes to age, that age bump goes away as soon as you're like 21 because then you're like, all right, now you're just like.
But I will say this though. Christian Noble, you said 751 in the 3,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably the most famous 751 3,000 meter runner in the college scene right now, correct? Because he's breaking records. He's getting interviewed because he's breaking records, because he's at that level, because all the stuff we associate with D2 and D3 make his story more compelling because we're looking for a different angle. And I mean, I think you need to factor that in as well too. So speaking of age though, let's go on the other end of the age spectrum because we got a couple comments. You were talking about Brady's Super Bowl and putting in a track comparison. Someone said Bernard Lagat. Sorry, my font is so small here. Akili says Bernard Lagat winning 2016 Olympic trials at age 41 with a sub 53 last second lap is better than Brady and Abdi. And then we had another one from New Zealand bloke. I think Nick Willis running 356 indoors at 37 years of age, nearly 38, is more astonishing, and it looks like his kick is still there and just as strong as he was in his 20s. Yeah, I think the Lagat argument for sure. That was nuts to see. That comeback, especially after do you remember that? Like the 10K, he didn't look that good. And you're like, oh, is this it for Bernard Lagat? This is how he's going to go out? and then he summoned something in that last race and outkicked Chalimo and Hassan Mead, Eric Jenkins. It was loud
Do you
that day,
think?
Edward. It was
Do
exciting.
you think in your lifetime you will see another 40-year-old do something that Legat did?
My lifetime, yeah.
Okay, because in your lifetime you will not see an NFL quarterback win 7 Super Bowls.
What do you mean? How do you know that?
You're not going to see that.
I'm going to live for a long time. You don't know that. You think
Make
it's
a bet?
impossible that someone else wins 7? So yeah, and I'm going to live longer than you, so you're not going to be able to prove it.
Well, I'll make the bet with your child. So when you die,
Okay.
Your
No.
child's
I
gonna
am
pay
living
me.
longer than your child, because I'm living
my
longer.
so
than
this
you.
is my child versus your child. My child that doesn't exist.
Right.
So I need to have
my children.
Maybe I should. Right now I should do it with my nephews, because my nephews versus your children. They're the ones who are going to pay out the bet. We will not see an NFL quarterback win 7 Super Bowls.
You've lived. How old are you? 32. You've lived a third of your life. The arrogance of youth. I'll never see anything beyond what I've seen in 30 years of life. The Gordon Mack take.
The odds are not there, man. I think the odds of a team.
What do you think someone said 25 years ago about this? What do you think people said when Tiger Woods was chasing the all-time major record and it looked like a formality? Think people would have thought he didn't get it? Sports are weird.
Think
you have 60 more years on this earth at least. Well,
I just think it's a lot harder.
Years.
I think we will see multiple Jordans and LeBrons in our lifetime. Like, we will see another LeBron take over for the next 15 years. But football is different because it's a lot harder for one athlete to not. Yeah, you need a team, and I think the luck that he had with his team won't be replicated.
Okay, so you're basically yes, but that's weird then, right? But that's not an argument for why it's a more impressive athletic feat. That's more of an argument for just like luck and happenstance combined with obviously great skill and longevity.
Taking advantage of the moment,
like,
He was super lucky and took advantage of the luck.
A 40-year-old is not lucking into a win at the Olympic trials. It's not happening, right? Because what has to go? They have to first get the qualifying time, right? They have to get out of the rounds, and then they have to somehow finish top 3. Or in Bernard Lagat's case, win the race and go on to the Olympics. Like, that's really hard.
Could you argue Bernard Lagat got lucky based on the race tactics that developed being best suited for him?
You could, but I don't know if it was best at that age. No, it wasn't that dissimilar to every other 5,000. I've seen one clearly lucky, and I think you were there. 2014, Sacramento, USA Outdoor Championships, men's 800, a massive fall. Took out basically everybody except who was in front? Was it Kaz Loxam who didn't fall down? It was the weirdest race. Yeah, if you just like somehow tuned in halfway, you'd be like, wait a minute, is this like a marathon? Like, the gap was enormous. That reminded me of that short track speed skating thing where everybody falls and then some guy who's in last place is like, well, I get the gold medal. Oh. But in most cases
that'd be awesome.
It doesn't happen.
Dude, wouldn't it be awesome if like indoor track had like that thrill the way indoor speed skating had, where like
you like that?
You could just
like that.
I love that because it's like gambling, you know. It's just like, oh, let's see what happens, you know. Just shuffle them up and deal. Like, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of wild if like indoor track was like let's do like instead of a 200-meter track, it's like a 50-meter circle track, and they're just like always like shoving and pushing. It'll be fun. Let's make it happen.
We got a couple emails I wanted to read here. A couple people talking about, we didn't mention the Virginia Tech men. 5 of them broke 4 in the same race, which I expected you to be all over that.
Well, I'm the one who tweeted it, so I talked about it. We didn't talk about it on this podcast. But I was one of the first to make the announcement. Hey, this just happened. I screenshotted those results and I tweeted it out. Gave them some
There
love.
you go.
So
All
we
right.
didn't talk about the pod. But yeah, I mean, they ran a bunch of 359s, which still good. And Oregon's about to probably do the same thing this weekend. It does get me excited though if Virginia Tech like stays healthy. You know, try to put together a really good 4x mile at Penn Relays. That'll be fun to watch. But anytime your fifth best runner is running 359, your coach is doing something right. So much props to them.
Let's go through this real quick. We got a question about Shelby Houlihan not racing at the Prickly Pear race. Not sure. I would guess she's fine. But do we really know anything about any athlete? I mean, no.
Do we know anything?
If it's another month that goes by and we don't see her racing, then I guess that would be a big deal. I mean, Centro pulled out of the New Balance meet, but other than that, and Bartelsmeyer's in there, but other than that, it seems like they're prioritizing just racing in outdoors meets right now. Correct? Like they're not making a big push for indoors. But that also means that since her teammates have been racing, that we should expect to see her. So I'd say give it another month, 3 weeks, and then get concerned. Pete B writes in, he says, maybe I'm alone in this, and I know it probably isn't your area, but why does FloTrack post the results in the title? Some people actually like to watch races without knowing the outcome. That is just dumb. Why not Ingebrigtsen throws down and leaving, or holy SH ***, Sagai came to run? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
It's just you.
Defend yourself, Gordon.
It's just you. Watch it live if you don't want to know what happened. It's not the responsibility of the internet to withhold spoilers for everyone.
I was looking at others. I don't know.
If you go to the front page of ESPN after the Super Bowl, are they going to be like, "Did Brady win? Find out. Click here."
Well, no. I think what Pete's saying is just like, but if you DVR'd the Super Bowl, right, and then you went to watch it, it's like how does he watch the race on demand without
full event
having
replay.
It be spoiled? Full event
replay doesn't have any spoilers in it.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. So, but how does he get there without? How does he get there without going to the home page?
Go to the Flow Sports app. Click on it.
Okay, good. Tell him how to do it. This is good.
Scroll down. Click full event replay. Boom.
There it is.
Or have someone else scroll get to the video for you. Click play and then watch it. So someone who you're okay, it's allowed to see the spoilers. Like have your son, it's like, hey, have your 6-year-old just like find the video for you and then make it full screen and then you're good.
All right, last one here. This is from Kevin. It says Gordon downplayed the significance of a high school boy breaking the national record. He beat every high school boy of all time, which indoors I'm adding.
That's
which
not true.
Guys like indoors I'm saying, which includes guys like American high school boy. That's what you're talking about. Which includes guys like Ryan Webb, Hunter Fisher, and LaCory. Saying that sub 4 isn't what it used to be is irrelevant to the point that he set the record. Saying that COVID allowed guys more time to train also applies to college guys. It's worth pointing out that he would be 4th in the NCAA, wedged between the guy who won his race and a guy he beat in that race. We are 5 weeks into NCAA season, and an 18-year-old high school kid who had never run on a bank track or run within 20 seconds of the time was able to run faster than all but 3 of the 18 to 24-year-old guys in the NCAA. Would not be surprised if this kid runs 355 indoor and 350 outdoor, which would place him in a competitive position for trials. And he also brings up the Vatek thing.
The idea that
350 is ambitious. 350 is ambitious.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
The idea that like he would be 4th in the NCAAs. You do realize that like 70% of the best distance runners are not running indoor, and that's why like it's easier to be 4th in the NCAA. Like you'll see, I think Jared Naguse would be better than him, right? So that makes him 5th in the NCAAs, right? I think Luis Grijalva would probably run a faster time, so that makes him 6th in the NCAAs. Like you could keep going and add more and more people who can run fast miles, who would make the 357 become 14th in the NCAA. Still great, still 14th, still awesome. 357 is still good, and also. Alan Weber in 353 in 2000, what, one?
One. Outdoors,
like 20 years
outdoors.
Outdoors.
He's talking indoors. He's talking indoors.
I know he's talking indoors, but like
I like how you channel all the rage to me as if I wrote the email. Like, come on, man, chill out.
No, it's great. And 357 is great. And he should be happy. His parents should be proud. He's probably going to go on and be a great athlete, maybe even make an Olympic team. And he's going to have a huge legacy. But it's not like the guy ran 349. So it's got just like, that's all I'm saying.
What about Salomon That's what I want to know. Why are we not talking
Americans
more about Salomon
love to attach to like records and then think it's like the most incredible thing in the world. But sometimes we have to recognize like the world is bigger than just the track and field news top 10 list. And that just because you're at the top of that list doesn't mean like we are witnessing history. Yeah, we're witnessing technical history because it happened to be on the indoor track and under the age of this and still enrolled in a U.S. systems high school that is founded by, like, we get it. But, like, in the end, it's a 357. Like, that's what it is. Yeah. It's a 357, which is great. Which is
better than 350.
I will never run a 357. There's probably only going to be very few amount of people ever in the world history who run 357, and he's part of that group. I do want to say, I did a friend of mine. I'll leave this person nameless. When this person said, "Did you see that Keebler kid?" And they didn't know how to, Keebler Elf. They're like, who won the fast time? Was it like Keebler Elf, Keebler something? And I laughed out loud because that was their reaction to Hobbs Kessler. Well, that's his name, Hobbs Kessler. So I even messed up. His name's Hobbs Kessler, and the person's like, "Oh yeah, Keebler, like Keebler Elf." And I thought that was funny. Their reaction to that person's name. Hobbs Kessler is a very unique name.
It's a good name. It's a great name.
Yeah,
I think
that's up there with JP and Joe Dragon. Go for it.
Yeah. I think he's got a bright future just because
I think so too.
Again, he's only behind. I think I'll just reiterate what I said before. I think he's different than those other guys. A lot of the 359 guys. I think the fact that 357 and the fact that he doesn't seem he just recently is all in on running and he's got all these other interests and stuff. I think once he starts training, gets more years of training under his belt, I think we could see him get into the low 350s. 350 this year, obviously, like way ambitious, but and if you get to 350, then you're competitive. Obviously, then internationally. I mean, he doesn't have far to go to get competitive internationally, but he does need to obviously knock off time, right? Because if 357 is like a 340 1500 runner, right? A 340 1500 runner, we wouldn't say going into most like high U.S. caliber races would be a favorite to win. They would still be back there, but he's in high school still.
Oh, look, it's one last thing. There's 3 rounds at the Olympic trials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where does Hobbs Kessler finish the season? Is it not qualifying for the Olympic trials? Is it making it to the first round, second round, final? I'll even say top 3, and then winning the Olympics, right? Where does his line end? Where do you think what's his
semis? He maybe gets
he makes it to semis?
Here's what I don't know about him. His kick, because we saw this time trial type race. So how does he do in a race that goes out in 65 seconds where everybody's just looking at each other? That's what I want to know. And I haven't seen enough of that yet.
Yeah, I think he makes it to
Webb could kick. Webb could kick, right? But he still didn't have luck that first U.S. championships because inexperience. But I mean, obviously Webb was a monster in the 800 and could close. All right, we'll leave it there. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is the email address, or you can find us on our YouTube page. Leave some comments. Next week, very, very busy week for us. We'll start on Monday with recapping some results. Gordon will be on the road. We'll talk more about that next week. I might be on the road as well. Thanks to Alon for producing. Enjoy all the track and field this weekend, guys, and we will see you on Monday.